The beginning of the Megillah starts with speaking about Achashverosh. Achashverosh's party, Achashverosh's Malchus, his kingdom that in the third year of his kingdom was now settled. Now he made a party. I guess Pashup Pshat is that it was Kisheves, when he was settled now his kingdom was solidified. He felt that certain safety, that he had control over the kingdom. Now he's making a party. There's another Mahalach from the Medrash. Okay. We should close the door. Thank you. Okay. So the pasuk says, "Vahivi me'achashverosh u'achashverosh ha'melech me'hodu v'ad kush sheva ve'esrim u'meya medina." Now, there was more than one Achashverosh, so it tells us that he was the one who ruled from Hodu v'ad Kush. He was a Persian king, Rashi says, who ruled after Koresh, 70 years after Galus Bavel. And this Achashverosh, Chazal call him a Rasha. So it says who Achashverosh. Other places we find who, and it refers to that he was the same from the beginning to the end. He was Paro, or he was Yosef, or somebody who stayed b'tzidkusai, or stayed b'rishasai, in the whole, from the beginning to the end. And here Rashi comments, "Hu b'rishai mitchilat avad tzayfai." So I assume Rashi wasn't written in the same dar as Achashverosh lived. Would have been too dangerous to write such a comment then. But it was Merumiz in the Megillah, in the way it was written with Ruach HaKodesh, how Chazal felt about Achashverosh, and although the salvation came together, through him, but they didn't feel too highly of him. Now, he wasn't a great lover of the Jews or such a righteous person. Now, there's a machlokes in Chazal whether this Hodu v'ad Kush was close to each other or they were far apart from each other. And if they were close to each other, so what's the great thing? Hodu v'ad Kush. He ruled to these two places that were very close together. But
sorry, I missed a little bit there. I came a little bit late. What was the openings?
We started from the first pasuk in the Megillah that says Achashverosh, he ruled from a place called Hodu until Kush. And it's a machlokes in Chazal whether Hodu and Kush were actually very close together or they were on opposite ends of the world. Maybe nowadays you'd say the world's round, so it could be both true. They're close together and the opposite ends of the world.
Hodu and Kush are close together?
According to one shot, they're close together. So the question then is, what's the big deal? He ruled from Hodu until Kush. They're close together, and the answer is that it's showing how ironclad his grip, his control over the kingdom was. That just like Hodu and Kush were close together, and he could know everything that's going on there and be in total control. So too, that's how he ruled. And all 127 Medinas, like Hodu v'ad Kush, so too he ruled all over in such a strong fashion.
Kush actually makes it in Africa somewhere we're talking about. Sudan.
Okay. So the 127 Medinas, this is an interesting comment. It's brought in the Gemara that 127 Medinas who lived 127 years? Sarah Imenu. Okay, so Esther, the Gemara says that Esther, who was a descendant of Sarah Imenu, was Zoche to rule over 127 Medinas. Okay, but the Targum takes that further, and the Targum says that, I didn't make printouts of the Targum, but the Targum says that what was going on in the times of Achashverosh, I think it was stopped in the time. Achashverosh was married to Vashti. Vashti was a daughter of the previous king Koresh. Okay, that was a source of some marital strife over there. That she had royal blood and he didn't, and she held herself higher than him. But Vashti was known to be also a Rasha, and what she And what the Targum attributes to her is the fact that during the times of Achashverosh, they were not allowed to rebuild the Beis HaMikdash. It was because of Vashti's influence, and Achashverosh went along with that she didn't want to allow the Beis HaMikdash to be rebuilt. The Targum says, Hu Achashverosh Moi Betilas Avidas Beis Elakana Rabba, that they were not allowed to continue the rebuilding of the Beis HaMikdash. Bava Betila Achnas Tartein L'Daryavish, and it remained that they couldn't continue to build it till the second year of Daryavish. Why was this? Begin Etisa de Vashti Chayevta, because of Vashti, the wicked, of her Eitzah, her advice. The daughter of Evel Merodach, I said Koresh, I made a mistake. She was the daughter of Evel Merodach, Bar Nebuchadnezzar. Because she didn't allow the Beis HaMikdash to be rebuilt, is Gezar Allah Liskatala Artilasa. It was decreed on her that she should be killed. Means, so Targum saying that, it doesn't say this in the Pasuk, but from the beginning of the story here, there was already hovering a decree that was Min HaShamayim that Vashti was going to be killed. And what follows suit is a fulfillment, in bringing into play that decree that was already hovering.
But the fact is, it's not Vashti. Obviously, she was just a player in this, because, it's Rabbi who actually rules things. So regardless of what Vashti says, yes or no,
right?
It's going to work. So you're not ready yet for the Beis HaMikdash. So I don't understand when you say Vashti wouldn't allow it.
Right. Well, there was a Gezerah, should be a certain number of years, 70 years, right? Chazal say that Galus Bava was 70 years. Mm-hmm. And it was 70 years. It was just a question of how to calculate it. And there was a question whether it should be from the beginning of the exile, from the end of the exile, because the stages of Galus Bavel happened in different stages. When the beginning of the beginning of the Charash Umasker was the first part of the Galus, when many of the sages were sent into exile, and later on the Melech Yechanya, I think his name was sent into Galus, and but it happened in different stages. So the Kitzur, what I'm saying is that it wasn't clear to anyone there whether it was Min HaShamayim that they should be able to have the Beis HaMikdash. We know that when it happens, that's when HaKadosh Baruch Hu decreed. But when you have a Rasha that doesn't allow something from their own wickedness, so they get punished for it. Whether HaKadosh Baruch Hu has his plans, that's a different cheshbon. But there's Bechira, and the person could choose to make bad choices.
No, I understand it, but what I'm saying is that regardless of a Russia, in other words, the timing is not decided by any human being. Timing is decided by Kodesh Baruch Hu. So what I'm saying is that when it says that it was Vashti who didn't allow it to be built, that may be. But right. That wasn't without good.
In other words, from a historical perspective, we're not going to say it's because of Vashti that may have been what it looked like.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, that's just what it looked like, and she was punished for such, and that was, according to this pshat in the Targum, why there was a decree on her that she should be killed.
The same idea as with Purim and Mitzrayim. In other words, HaKadosh Baruch Hu could have brought the Bnei Yisrael out from Mitzrayim whenever he wanted to, but obviously there was a certain sequence of events that had to be followed, and Parah had to be punished.
When Chazal say that Megagol and Schus Ayidei Zakai, that as Schus, something in merit, is brought about by a meritorious person, and the contrary, something that's Chayav, that's evil, is brought about by a bad person. So, for example, if somebody, the Torah commands a person to make a makkah, to make a wall, a fence around their roof, because it's dangerous. If somebody goes up on your roof, they could fall off.
Right.
But Chazal say, What do you need a fence for? Either way, if it was Nigzara, it's a Gezerah min hashamayim that the person should die, so he'll fall off the roof, regardless of whether there's a fence or not. It's not you who did it, so what do you need to put a fence there? But they say no, that you don't want to be the cause for it, you don't want to be involved in this, and Migaglin Schosai de Zakai and Mechayev Ayedei Chayev. In other words, so you want to be righteous, you don't want that this person should die.
It didn't have to be Vashti, it could have been somebody else. Could have been somebody else.
It could have been somebody else.
And that's why she's punished, because she decided she wanted to be the one.
The interesting thing is that Achashverosh, who was not royalty, killed somebody who was royalty.
Right. According to some of the Mefarshim, that there was actually something deeper going on, that we'll see more in the Psukim, but this was a power struggle between the two of them, because she had royal blood and he didn't, and he's becoming the Melech, and she feels that she's more important than him.
But it would also help explain, if there was a decree, that did she not see what was coming by saying no to the king? Like, did she think she was going to be above being executed by not fulfilling the king's orders? I mean,
right.
So why would she put herself in such a situation? I mean, it could look like Pharaoh. It's hardly.
Okay, so we're going to see this very famous details in the story of Vashti, of what happened to her, why she refused. So just finishing the thought of the 227 Medinos, and Sarah Imenu lived 127 years, and the Targum is saying that from the very beginning of the Megillah, this decree was in place, and the Kodesh Baruch Hu had in mind that Esther was going to become the queen, and she was going to be queen over 127 Medinos, and this is all set in place, and Merumas in the fact that in the first pasuk it's saying there was 127 Medinos, 127 provinces that Achashverosh ruled over, and this was, so to speak, something that fit with Esther Hamalka, that she was destined to rule over, and that's what Achashverosh had. Now, that's what the Targum says. That Achashverosh actually had a struggle, according to one explanation, and Achashverosh had a struggle in his kingdom, and when he, according to this pshat, when he made he was struggling. The Targum says that because he listened to her advice of not rebuilding the Beis Hamikdash, so it says that his days were shortened, and the kingdom was split. That beforehand, everyone was underneath his control and under his reign, and now he was having struggles. Now not everyone was feeling subservient to him, because in Minashamayim was because of this. So it says that Hashem was revealed to Hashem that Vashti would be killed and Esther would be the queen, and she was from the daughter of Sarah that lived 127 years. Okay, now this is something that I'm not going to explain, but it's something that lends itself to explanation. So, Sarah Imenu lived 127 years. That's a very nice connection. Sarah Imenu, Esther Hamalka. Is there any more closer relationship, something to do with the specific tzidkus and righteousness of Esther and Sarah Imenu, and the fact, and so on? Is there anything, any more closer correlation than that? Okay, something to think about, food for thought. The Vrei Torah could be said about that idea. Okay, Esther Hamalka was known for she was called Hadassah. She was known to be very righteous. One of the things that she did was give up her life for the Jewish people and sacrificing herself, going into very dangerous, we'll call it suicide mission, into Achashverosh when she wasn't supposed to be going in to be the queen of a Gentile who, what did he do? He took each girl and that was it. One night, and she decided she's not the queen, and that was it. this was something that was a very dangerous mission and a big sacrifice that Esther was giving to become. She didn't want to go on that mission. We'll see more about that.
What choice did she have? The agents of the king went out.
That's true. But what later on in the story, she went willingly. And there was a certain point where she was always taken by force, and then you're right. In the initial stages, she was taken. You're right about that. Okay.
But the whole rest of the story is a very one of the most difficult story. I mean, episodes in Jewish history is the fact that the Jewish peoples were saved by something
External?
No, not external, but
Correct.
the opposite of what we stand for. Taras Mishpacha is the number one thing,
Right.
and this is what she gave up. Bottom line, whether you say she was married to Mordechai or not married to Mordechai, and through going, and that's something that's supposed to let yourself be Guilford and then to Gilead Rice, then to
Right.
go through with it, and this was what saved us.
Yes, HaKadosh Baruch Hu works in amazing, wondrous ways.
Wonders is one thing, but
it is. There are so many. There are stories that what happened with Tamar, and Yehuda, and Mashiach.
Right.
There are certain stories in Tanakh where HaKadosh Baruch Hu works in mysterious ways, in very unexpected ways. Right. This wasn't the only salvation. It was a famous story with Yael, right, and Sisera, and what do you say, Yehudis as well, and I'll tell you the truth, it's something which, speaking from my wife's perspective, she doesn't have any questions, in her Amunah, but at the same time, Purim, as joyous as it is, always conjures up in her some feelings of sadness that we're all rejoicing, and look, Esther was stuck in the palace with Achashverosh. When the story was over, she's still in the palace, stuck with Achashverosh, with this, maybe from a Goyish perspective, this is amazing. She's the queen, she's so much wealth and riches and everything you could wish, but from a Jewish perspective, you don't want to be with Achashverosh.
But that's Taurus and Emes. That's real life. In real life, unfortunately, that it's not always a happy ending for, this is not a fairy tale. This is the Emes. So...
No, we won't leave it to Coach Baruch Hu's, right? So he's in charge. It could be whatever ending that he decided to be.
Right. But we're given a real world to deal with. So it's a real world. That's the end.
And part of, I think, what we have to always remember when sudden things like this face us is that there's an Olam Haba, and there's eternity. So what's happening in this world is setting up the eternity. But let's say, let's just say there's somebody. I'll give an example. I think this is a good example. Let's say there was somebody who his whole life, maybe he lived in a different door, or even in this door. His whole life, he longed to go to Eretz Yisrael. He longed for the Kedusha of Eretz Yisrael. He wanted to live close to the Shekhinah, to be able to mekayim the mitzvahs, Hatliyas Ba'aretz, and the Abira, the Aramachkim, and this is what he longed for. And he learned Torah, and he had a relationship with the Kadosh Baruch Hu, and he longed to take that to a higher level and to be in the Makayim of the Shekhinah, in the palace of the king, so to speak. And he was never Zaycha. Whether whoever it was, there were different sages throughout the generations, and they never merited that. Okay, maybe because they felt that their Klal Yisrael needed them to continue leading the generation in the place where they were, or because of other dangers, other circumstances. But so such a person, you could look at it, that's tragic. They never made it to Eretz Yisrael. But I think that in Olam Haza they never made it to Eretz Yisrael. But in Olam Haba, such a person was connected on such a deep level with the Kadosh Baruch Hu, always longing for that dveikus, for the makam of the Hashras Hashchina. It's hard to say that, in other words, what a person longs to achieve in this world, HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes it to another level in Olam Haba. And we can never see the end of our strivings and longings. And it's the same thing with other things which seem that didn't work out the way we wanted it to work out. The end of the story, we don't see the end of the story in this one.
But the thing is that the example that you mentioned, the fact they couldn't go to within, there was no breaking of the law, so to speak, involved. But with the story of Esther, there's definitely a breaking one of the most fundamental laws that we have.
Right. So the good thing is that she had her own personal Paisik, who Mordechai Tzaddik, who was able to tell her when it was permitted to do so, and when it wasn't permitted to do so. Yeah,
but we're talking about a whole different time. A camel or a donkey had a greater value than a woman in many cases. Like a daughter was something, got it, they're 9 or 10 years old, got to get rid of her, she's a liability. We're talking a whole different mentality.
And therefore?
Pardon?
Where are you going with it?
No, but we're talking about our values today, and maybe our Jewish values.
And Mordechai was looking at it and saying, look, I've got something valuable here, I can deal.
No.
1 second.
I think that impression that you have, I don't think it permeated the Jewish family as well. The fact that the woman meant nothing.
I said it's different. It's different than the Jewish values. But what I'm saying is, you're living. The law of the land is, his emissary saw her. Okay, she's going. There's, what was the alternative? Mm-hmm. You want to die, or she goes.
Okay, so I want to share with you a hara from Rashi. That if I could find the Rashi, you all have the Rashis in front of you. So when I find the pasuk, and we're skipping now a little bit just to discuss this point of Esther being taken to the palace. So it's in further along in the story, in Parak Beis, I believe. So it says. In Parak Beis, Pasuk Yud. It says in Parak Beis, Pasuk Yud. Okay, we're not going through the whole story until then, just this Pasuk. Lahigida Esther es Amma ves Meiladata. Esther wouldn't tell her nation and who she was born to. Ki Mordechai tziva aleha asher lo sagid. Mordechai commanded her not to tell. So Rashi says, so Esther is following the command of Mordechai, and it's a pretty dangerous thing to do, that the king wants to know who you are and you're keeping a secret from the king, and she's not telling who she is, where she comes from, her nation and her birthplace. So Rashi says, why did Mordechai instruct her to do this? Why did Mordechai tell her not to say? Says Rashi, Asher lo sagid kidei sheyomru, so that they would say, meaning I guess in the palace they would say, shehi mi mishpacha bezuya, so that they'll say that she's from a disgraceful family, a family that's not an honorable family. And they'll send her away. They won't be interested in her. She'im yedu, because if they would know, shehimi mishpacha Shaul HaMelech, that she's from royal blood, from the kingdom, from the family of Shaul HaMelech, hayu machzikim ba, so they would keep her. And Mordechai didn't want that Esther should be kept in the palace, because this is tragic that you have a Jewish girl here who's in the palace of the king. So we have to do everything that we can to try to get her out. So in those days they didn't have these delegations that could go and make with picket signs or whatever in front of Achashverosh. It wouldn't help too much. So, but he thought that maybe what the proper hishtadlus was, that we should tell her they're not to say. They won't find out that she's from a royal blood, and therefore they won't want to keep her based on that premise. On the contrary, they'll say that she's from a mishpacha bezuya. So now, all of this shows, this Rashi, that the way that Mordechai is acting is trying to keep her away from the palace. Initially, it could be that she was hid and she wasn't offered, she wasn't standing in line in the beauty pageants to try to get into the kingdom. Now, but the thing is that struck me that Rashi seems to say something somewhat of the opposite, and that is that, see if we can find this. Rashi says, okay, but I can't find it now, I'll tell you outside. You know, you prepare what you want to say, but then always you say what you want to say. You know? What you prepared isn't as powerful as what you know. The Chazal say that what a person is mechadish, that's chaviv to them, it's more dear to them. So they sometimes would like to teach that more than even what's more basic. It's a problem, you know, because sometimes you have to teach what's more basic. But Rashi says like this, that Mordechai was one of the people that was shown a sign, like min hashamayim, that he was able to see that he was part of a grand plan over here that was going to save the Jewish people. Okay. If you look in Pasuk Yud Aleph, okay, it's the next Pasuk, actually in the next Pasuk. V'chol yom v'yom, every single day. This is right after it says that Esther was commanded by Mordechai not to tell. The very next Pasuk says, V'chol yom v'yom, every single day, Mordechai mishalech lifnei chatzar beis hanoshim. Mordechai would go in front of the courtyard of the beis hanoshim where the women who were getting ready were being kept. Ladas eshleim Esther, to check in, to know how she is doing, umayi aseba, and what is going to be done with her. So, Rashi says, every day he was going. Zeh echad mishnei tzadikim, this Mordechai was one of the two tzadikim, two righteous people, shenitin lem remez, Yeshua, that was given to them a hint of the salvation. It means it was like a Ruach HaKodesh that he had. One was David, and one was Mordechai. David shenemar, in other words, Rashi is saying that Mordechai knew that there was a Yeshua that was coming about here, and he was going every day to check to see when is the salvation coming. David says in the Pasuk in Shmuel, Games Ari Gama Doiv Hika Avdecha. Omar, David said, like Bali Yadi Davar Zeh, that I could kill an Ari and kill a Doiv, a beer. That I should see my strength, that Hakadosh Baruch Hu was with me, that I could fight and wage battle. Mordechai Omar, and that gave David the confidence. Mordechai Omar, Mordechai said to himself, this could not have happened to this tzaddikas, that she should be taken to Achashverosh shetilakach lemishkav Ariel, to lay with a uncircumcised Gentile, because that she's going to come and she's going to save the Jewish people through being in this position. Therefore, he was always checking what's going to end up, how's the story, what's happening with Esther. So, isn't this contradictory? From the one pasuk, Rashi says that he told her not to say who she is. Why? Because they should think she's a mishpacha bezuya, and they should know that she's from the family of Shalom Melech, and they should want to send her out. And that's it. Party's over. No more Esther in the palace of the king. And the second Rashi says that Mordechai keeps checking in because he knows that this is somehow the Yeshua is going to come through Esther being in the palace of the king, and he's looking to see. I see the lakum leishia Yisrael. So why is he trying to get her out? So that's the question. Now you could say your own interpretation, but what I was thinking is that Mordechai knew that as much as HaKadosh Baruch Hu has his plans, and we're not going to we can't do what's the wrong thing to do in order to bring about the Yeshua. The ends doesn't justify the means, unless you have, you have a specific thing that there's a reason why sometimes there's an override. But in this case, it wasn't, let's say, crystal clear. There was a sinan from Shemayim. There was a somehow, what's she doing there? Probably she's there because the Yeshua is going to come, and Mordechai had his eye on that. But at the same time, at this point, Mordechai felt that our hishtadlus has to be that we can't help in any way that she should stay there. So it would be a help to say that she's from the family of Shalom Melech. Don't say that you're from the family of Shalom Melech. You don't want that it should be willingly. You're getting taken. Because Baruch Hu has his ways. He's taking you. It's like a derech hateva that she ended up, that they searched and they found this one girl, and Esther Amalka. So Hashem will have his plans, and it will go through. But anyway, so what I'm saying is that at the same time it was tragic, and at the same time it was salvation, and Mordechai wasn't helping out, so to speak, and Esther wasn't helping out when she went to be taken. She didn't want, Chazal say, she didn't want to choose the perfumes, and every girl could decide what lotions, what oils, what perfumes, and different baths, and different clothing, and everything. She said she doesn't want anything special, and she left it up to, I think it was what's his name? Shashkai. Shashkaz. He gave her something generic, something, nothing special.
No.
Yeah.
I'm trying to understand, what was the purpose of this whole episode of Haman and Mordechai? I'm saying, what was there something that the Bnei Israel did that they brought upon themselves?
Okay.
Because you see, there's a big difference, for example, and not that I want to make a comparison between what happened with Purim and what happened with the Shoah. The Shoah, the results were disastrous. With the Purim, while the story, the beginning may have been disastrous, there was Yeshua at the end of it.
Right.
Okay.
Because I'll say about Purim that when Achashverosh took off his ring, that did more for the Jewish people than all of the prophets and prophetesses that were telling Klal Yisrael to do tshuva for so many years, and they didn't listen. They didn't get the message. But when Klal Yisrael saw that the king of the world power, took off his ring and gave it to Haman, and now Haman, do with them as you please. And when they saw that, they were so petrified that this changed the game for them to do tshuva more than all of the Nevi'im and Nevi'os that Klal Yisrael, HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent to them to do tshuva. And another Gemara Megillah says that this decree was really only according to one shot, this decree was really a scare to the Jewish people. In other words, HaKadosh Baruch Hu knew all along that He's leaving it open for them to do tshuva. He's leaving it open for them to change and bring about a salvation. And in the end, like you said, it wasn't really a tragedy in the end.
On the contrary,
this wasn't a tragic story. And then, besides the fact that Esther Amalka was stuck in the palace, but for the Jewish people at large,
mind you, although we have to say that the period of time between when Haman started the persecution and the Yeshua came, there was terror. There was fear. It may not have been physical,
yes,
but there was fear. What was going to happen to them?
Certainly, there certainly was fear, and this was part of what generated them to fast and to repent and to humble themselves in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to cry out and to do tshuva. And it was because of this fear, because they knew that, look, the way things stand, there's nothing we can do about it. And it's only if the tables turn, which they turned.
Because there doesn't seem, at least from what I read, there doesn't seem to be any mention in the Megillah of the misdeed, so to speak, of the Bnei Yisrael.
Right, you're right. So, it doesn't say, but at the same time, there's very famous from Chazal, and there's different midrashim. The Gemara Megillah goes through many of them, but I'm just speaking from memory, because the truth is I didn't just right now learn through the Gemara Megillah like I should have in preparing for the shir. But one that is very famous is that the Bnei Yisrael went to the party of Achashverosh, and they shouldn't have. Mordechai told them not to go. And the specific lashon of the Gemara is that they were nene, that they enjoyed, they got hana and pleasure from the suit of Achashverosh. In other words, even if there was,
they had the kelim from the base of Mikdash.
Yes, that's right. The Chazal say that when the Psukim say that the kelim or the kelim shonim, it means, and this is brought from the Targum brings this as well, that where were these kelim from in the party? These were kelim, the vessels that were used to drink were from the base of Mikdash. Okay, let's just see if we can find that. The pasuk says, "V'ashkos b'chlei zahav v'kelim mikelim shonim." So says the Targum. This is pasuk Zayin. You don't have the Targum in front of you. It says, "In golden vessels from the base of Mikdash that Nebuchadnezzar the Rasha brought from Yerushalayim." Okay, and then he used other vessels that Achashverosh himself had that would change the way they looked, and something, I don't know, magical about them. Okay, so they used the kelim. In other words, why are you mentioning this? Because if they were using the kelim in the base of Mikdash, how could a Jew sit by that party and enjoy it? And the answer is, I think part of the answer is because imagine how we would feel. Imagine how we would feel. It's terrible that we're in Galus, but we're being treated royally. We're being invited to the king's party, and we're getting to drink on golden vessels. And it's unfortunate that we don't have the base of Mikdash, but this is our new reality. Our new reality is that we are being treated like equals with the rest of the people, and not only are we being treated equal, but we're being invited to the party, and we enjoy this. It tastes good, and of course they wanted, maybe when they first saw the vessels, they wanted to cry, and they started enjoying it, and they allowed themselves to enjoy it. So I think part of the message there is that even if there was a machlokas with Mordechai, and perhaps they said that they should go, but the punishment wasn't in as much as going, as if going and then enjoying it and feeling the pleasure. And I know maybe you've heard this Dvar Torah before, but there's a one of the Mefarshim explained that when Moshe Rabbeinu broke the Luchos, it wasn't when he heard about the Egel or saw the Egel, but the pasuk says when he saw the dancing. That's what the point that he broke the Luchos, because the dancing, the joy, the festivity, they're not just doing the Aveira, but they're getting a hana from it. That's much deeper. That goes much deeper. That's much more damaging. And so there's a famous commentary on the Torah called the Bach, which has a beautiful essay about the difference between Purim and Chanukah. And he says that Purim, the Gezerah, was because the Aveira was something that their bodies, they sinned with their guf. They sinned with their physical bodies, that they went and enjoyed this party. So the decree was such that Haman, the fear that hung over them was that what's going to happen to them is that they're going to be totally annihilated. Not that there wasn't a decree against the observance of Judaism. It was rather a decree against the physical bodies, the people of the Jewish people, that they should be totally wiped out. And they needed to do tshuva and how they did tshuva, they fasted and they took that away from themselves and repented and felt this tsar, and then ultimately the rejoicing is a rejoicing that we do with our bodies. In a simcha shal mitzvah, in a simcha of that Klal Yisrael re-accepted kimu v'kiblu haYehudim, that there was haYehudim ma'isa ayra v'simcha, right? the Sasa and Yikar came to Yalanu, that the Jewish people had this was a Yudimai Sa'ira V'Simcha, was a joy. And what was this joy? So it was a joy, Chazal say, of Ira Zutara, and Sasa and Simcha refers to, I believe, having Yom Tovim and Rosh Chodesh and Mila, and this Klal Yisrael realize what their real joy is. The real preciousness that they have is that they're not like the Goyim, that Klal Yisrael is different, and that we have the Torah that keeps us apart, and that they were reaccepted with the Torah at that time with a love for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, of seeing that, and that's why we rejoice. We have drinking. That's what they did by Achashverosh's party. That's what we should do. That was our downfall in the first place. We shouldn't drink on Purim. We should stay away from wine. We don't want to remember what went wrong. But it's because they rectified it, because they went back and they saw that was where they fell short, and they realized that Kadosh Baruch Hu saved them on that level. So we do the Nahapach. Kadosh Baruch Hu turned everything around. So that salvation came out from that party in the end. How? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu was always giving the refuah before the Makkah. Hashem put it in place that the salvation is already in place. The heal is there before the remedy is there before the ailment came. And in this situation, there's a fascinating thing, and the only guy points this out, but it's based. Other Mefarshim say this as well. That the lashon of the pasuk is that where did Achashverosh? Where was he in his third year? He was in Shushan. Now, who lived in Shushan? Mordechai HaTzadik. Now, why was Achashverosh's palace in Shushan? Why was it there? Did his predecessors rule in Shushan? Was that where the palace was? Was that the city that was the king's city until then? How do you call it? The king's city? So there's a name for it. The place where the government sits.
The seat of government.
Parliament?
No, there's an English word for it. Okay.
The seat of government.
No, the city that they got, let's say like Washington, the capital. Capital. Okay, the capital. So this wasn't the capital until now. So why now? And the Achashverosh wanted wanted to sit on the throne of Shlomo HaMelech. And this throne of Shlomo HaMelech was passed down for generations from the most powerful kings. And he got a hold of this throne, and he wanted to sit on the throne. And he couldn't sit on it. There was lions, there was different things that this was a very interesting throne. And when he tried to climb up it, he couldn't get up onto the throne. So he had made a replica. And the replica took till the third year of his kingdom, of his reign, to complete. There's in the Targum here, it brings us. And it took 3 years. When the throne was finished, and he was ready, Kisheves, when he sat, the Pasuk says, Kisheves HaMelech HaChashverosh al Kisei Malchusai. So, literally, he sat on his throne. After 3 years, it took him 3 years to sit on the throne that was B'Shushan Habira. The throne was constructed by craftsmen that were in Shushan Habira. So, and it was too big to transport. So the whole kingdom, he switched to be in Shushan Habira so he could sit on this throne. And that was the place where Esther was. That was the place where Mordechai was. And the salvation came about, through this. And it's hinted to in the Pasuk, because the Pasuk says that he invited the Jews Hanimtzeim. When he invited all the people to the party from Shushan, right? The first party he made 180 days was for everyone else. The second party was 7 days, was not just for the hotshots of all the nations of all the world and the diplomats and the kings, but the second party was for the Jews of Shushan, and along with other people from Shushan, but it was a special invitation to the Jews of Shushan. And it says, Hanimtzeim l'chol ha'am hanimtzeim b'Shushan, and the is a remez that's talking about Klal Yisrael, and the B'Shush Hanimtzeim means that they were found already, which means they were there before him. So it's a hint to the fact that Achashverosh just came into this place. He wasn't in his place that he was until now. And he's inviting everyone from Shushan where he was already. Okay, so Yashikayach, I think we saw some we got to learn some of the Megillah together with some of the commentaries. We'll hopefully see more in the next few weeks.